Ah yes, the Viking Age. The time when Saturday really was for the boys, and man was free to do whatever he wanted. This resulted in some hardcore partying in Scandinavia, enough so that the crops started seriously failing a big part of the growing population. This meant that they would have to go and find a place where the soil was actually good, and they could party when they eventually got kicked out of the house. Luckily, there was a land to the west with riches, more than anything in all of Scandinavia at the time, in which they could party harder than ever before, as well as getting profits from it, and ruining someone else's soil instead of their own. That's why today I'll be going through my pick for the top 10 best Viking invasions of the British Isles. This unfortunately means no Vikings in Paris for today, lads. But not to be let down, these may vary from raids, to armies, to countries being at war. I'll judge them based on how big they were, how much of an impact they had, and how successful they were. With these criteria in mind, let's just jump right into it. Number 10. The Isle of Portland, 789. Perhaps the least well-known raid on this list. This raid is really only here because it was the first documented Viking raid to take place on English soil. You may wonder why Lindisfarne is the more well-known raid in that case. Well, that is probably because not much pillaging and raiding really happened during this so-called raid. What happened was that 3 Viking ships from Norway that had lost their way landed on the Isle of Portland right outside of Dorchester. A local royal tried making contact with them, probably assuming they were traders, and asked them for taxes. The response? To kill him and then sail off from the aftermath. A real power move if I do say so myself. I give this one a bigness rating of 0.5 out of 10, an impact rating of 5 out of 10, and a success rating of 5 out of 10. Number 9. Eric Bloodaxe, Northumbria, 947 and 952. What's funny about this invasion is that the invasion itself is probably one of the most peaceful, if not the most peaceful invasion on this list. You can't even call it a proper invasion. To that, you may rightfully ask, well, why is it on this list then, Blop? The King of Wessex, who ruled over Northumbria at the time, had just died in a brawl, and so the throne passed to his younger brother, Edred. The death of the king in 947 caused York to get themselves a new ruler, Eirik Bloodaxe, or Bloodaxe, called so for having murdered his brothers in Norway to get to power. Understandably pissed, Edred would go on to ravage Northumbria in revenge for their betrayal. In fear of him destroying all of Northumbria, and seeing his bigger army size, the Northumbrians gave up on Eirik and bent the knee to their new king Edred instead. But the kingdom of Northumbria at this point in time was a fickle thing, and rulers would come and go. They therefore accepted another king by the name of Olav Sigtryggsson. This was until Eirik returned and was able to seize power from Olav. This didn't exactly go over well with the King of Essex the second time around either, but this time he didn't really have to do anything, for Eirik was thrown out by the Yorkers in 954. With this, Edred had him exiled again, marking the last time a Norseman would rule over Northumbria as king. Eirik might sound like a real rough guy with his nickname and all, but when you view Eirik's life as a whole, it becomes quite the tragedy actually. Poor Eirik just wanted not to be kicked out of the royal house of Norway, and therefore wanted to become king more than anything else. But his brothers wouldn't let him have this. Sick of their bullying and taunting, and them being heirs above him, he rightfully killed them, only to be exiled from Norway, having to live a frantic life as a warlord. Hearing of the riches and partying capacity of Northumbria, he just wanted a piece of that pie like anyone else. But no, what was essentially the King of England at that point wouldn't even let him have that, humiliating him at every turn and casting him out of this land of fellow northern partymen such as himself, only to be slain by those he held closest after being exiled. This is what bullying does, kids. Still think you're innocent? I'll tell you who was innocent. Eirik. This one gets a bigness rating of 4.5 out of 10, an impact rating of 6 out of 10, and a success rating of 1 out of 10. Number 8. Olav Tryggvason, 991. This marks the first invasion on this list where the Vikings received monetary compensation for their troubles. Yes, I am talking about Danegeld. This invasion happened in the south of England in 991, when the Norwegian warlord and soon-to-be king, Olav Tryggvason, decided to let out his frustrations by invading this area. Their forces arrived at Malden in 991, ready to fight, but the Anglo-Saxon army stood prepared, meeting them at the beach they were sitting in their boats outside of. But when the tide sunk, a kind of bridge would form that would allow the Norsemen to cross onto the mainland. This was, however, met with stiff resistance from the Anglo-Saxons. So the absolute genius of a Norwegian warlord went into deep think mode and decided to just ask the Anglo-Saxon commander if they could just allow him to cross and fight them in a fair battle. In what could only be described as 5-dimensional chess on the Anglo-Saxon side, the commander agreed and they would have a fair fight on an even playing field. But one of the Anglo-Saxon commanders got too scared when he saw the Norsemen and decided that now would be a good time to flee. Thinking it was their actual leader that had fled, the Anglo-Saxon army turned into chaos and every last man that didn't flee before the fight was slaughtered. The English king quickly realized the danger he was in from this silver-tongued master of words and decided to just pay him to go away. For a little while at least. I give this one a bigness rating of 3 out of 10, an impact rating of 3 out of 10, and a success rating of 7 out of 10, in addition to a silly rating of 7 out of 10. Number 7. Sihtric and Ragnall in Ireland, 914. After having been thrown out of Dublin by a great Irish coalition in 902, probably because of the Gaels' racism, the Norsemen had returned with a giant fleet and army to Ireland in 914, ready to take back what they saw as theirs. This army was led by 2 brothers, Sigtryg and Ragnall. Ragnall led the part of the army that invaded Waterford, whereas Sigtryg would invade somewhere closer to Leixlip in Leinster. I do not know if I am pronouncing that correctly, and neither do I care. Anyways, they went around plundering, pillaging and partying for a while, as you do, until 917, when the Battle of Confrey happened, and the forces under Sigtryg was able to crush those of the Irish. By 918, the 2 men had pretty much wrapped up their campaign in Ireland, so Sigtryg stayed behind, while Ragnall would go over to England to attempt to do what any self-respecting Viking warlord at the time would, namely, to become the king of Northumbria. But in 919, Dublin would yet again experience violent racism, as an Irish force would march on the city to try and retake it from the Norse. This was, however, met with failure, and the leader of the force, among with most of his men, were all killed in battle. Such is the fate of racist fools. After this, Sigtryg would go to Northumbria following Ragnall's death, and would try to take his place, which he did quite well. He was able to become ruler there, and would soon go to war with Mercia, led by the legendary king Athelstan. We don't really know who won this conflict, but after it, Sigtryg married his southern enemy's sister, and would convert to Christianity. Like that was ever gonna last. He reverted back to paganism not long after, and died in 927. Truly a proud man. I give this one a bigness rating of 6 out of 10, an impact rating of 7 out of 10, and a success rating of 7 out of 10. Number 6. Lindisfarne 793. Oh, Lindisfarne. We all know it. The raid that started the Viking Age, and the classic tale of a Viking raid to boot. Heathens arriving on English shores to get some unprotected monastery treasure, all while laying waste and killing some people around them. Hell yeah! Now what I don't understand is what the historians a while after the fact wrote down.
These were immense flashes of lightning, and fiery dragons were seen flying in the air. A great famine immediately followed these signs.
Now, these are supposed to be seen as omens, but aren't omens supposed to be something about crows or whatever? No, this must be something else. But what? Could it be that what is written down is what was observed? Does this mean that the Vikings were really just on a journey to rid the world of evil beings all along? What does it mean? I give this one a bigness rating of 2 out of 10, an impact rating of 6 out of 10, and a success rating of 10 out of 10. Oh, and I'm making this a two-parter, by the way. Why? I'll be sure to see you next time.